So it's probably no secret to anybody here that I'm a freedom activist. I've been a freedom activist really as long as I've been a lawyer, maybe even longer, because I think I started becoming a freedom activist after I met Butler Schaefer and had endless discussions in his office there that always started kind of the same way. Well, if the government stopped doing this, how would we get that? We'd have a huge problem. In which case, Butler would always respond with the same way. He'd say, yeah, seems like you're right about that, Mark. I said, see, we need the government to do this and that. And he would just simply ask me a question, well, what would happen next? And I would say, well, I don't know, obviously this. And he would say, yeah, what would happen after that? I would say, well, I don't know, maybe this. Then he'd say, what would happen next? And I would say, I understand now. And we went through this sort of process, issue after issue after issue. And that's typically what I speak on because I love to speak on freedom issues. I love talking about the non-aggression principle. That's why I did this huge rant last night, because I can't possibly give a talk without talking about the non-aggression principle. So that's sort of the prelude to this talk, because I'm not going to talk about the non-aggression principle at all. I love talking about the drug war. I love arguing about it. I don't even know, if you said to me, Mark, argue the other side of the drug war, I don't know what I would say. One of my favorite things to talk about, I'm not going to talk about the drug war this morning. The justice system. I know a lot about the justice system. I've been traveling through this thing, this beast of a system that we have. That's pretty good. My good brother, Alessandro over here, who's also a criminal defense attorney, we're going to hear from him later today, and I'm really excited about that, took me through the courts of Rome. And I got to see some things that's going on in the justice system over in Italy, and it made me feel like our system's pretty good on some issues. I love talking about the justice system, but I won't be talking about that today, nor will I be talking about guns. This is an entirely different kind of speech. This is a speech that's very personal to me. I'm going to talk about something that I have not talked about publicly ever. But I'm going to start by being just a little bit cocky. I know you'll be shocked about this. Look, it's just the truth, right? It's not cocky if it's the truth, right? I mean, you'd have a hard time. Maybe it could be done. You'd have a really hard time finding any criminal defense attorney anywhere, at least in this state, who's got a broader base of experience in the criminal justice system than me. I've done a lot. I estimate I've represented over 2,000 people on felony cases, many of them, maybe even most of them, major felonies. I've handled lots of first-degree murder cases, lots of sex cases, white-collar crime cases, endless gun cases, countless drug cases, serious drug cases, argued endlessly, even in court, on the record, against the drug war countless times. I've tried to a jury several death penalty cases, tried many other very serious, high-level felony cases to a jury, represented many people throughout every corner of this state. I got cases right now way up in, what is that crazy county up there? St. John's, Arizona. Some of you never even heard of it. It's like a 4-hour drive to get up there. And all the way down to Yuma, the other side. All through our state. I do state cases, federal cases. I've done state and federal cases in other states as well. I've done tons of appeals, state appeals, federal appeals. I've argued several times at the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals in San Francisco, and I've won there as well. I've done countless misdemeanors in countless misdemeanor courts. I've even done a lot of high-profile cases. Some of you may have heard. I represented Elizabeth Johnson in the Baby Gabriel case. The whole trial was covered live on national TV. Proud to say I represented Dr. Steinmetz, gun activist, who took his AR-15 for a walk to Sky Harbor Airport just because he could. I didn't know him at that point, but it was a successful defense. Some of you may know, if you're watching TV these days, that I represent Doug Haig right now, who's been accused of various things, maybe related, maybe not related to the tragedy that occurred in Las Vegas. I've been an expert commentator on the TV, on radio. I was the main commentator here in Arizona on the Jodi Arias case. Been quoted many, many times. Also built an incredible law firm, one that I got to rename the Attorneys for Freedom Law Firm. And you cannot be an attorney at my law firm unless you are a hardcore pro-freedom libertarian and you admit it publicly. You got to sign a statement of principles that I wrote. And it's tough. My position is no libertarian could possibly disagree with anything on my freedom pledge, and no non-libertarian could possibly agree with everything in there. If you can't sign that publicly, you can't work as a lawyer at my law firm. I got unbelievably awesome people at all levels of my law firm. There just isn't much that I have not done as a criminal defense attorney. But I realize now that until just recently, I was woefully unprepared and inexperienced to represent people in our justice system. I didn't have any idea what was going on, even after all of that. Yeah, I've toured the jails, toured the prison. I've had tours where I've walked through, and this is where they shower, and this is the food they get, and this is where they sleep. I've seen that. I've gone through, kind of like the judges have gone through. This is the jail. This is what happens. But I knew I was leaving. I've spent countless hours talking to people who were incarcerated. I've been on my side of the glass. They're on their side of the glass. Hey, how are they treating you, man? Lots of contact visits, too, where I've sat down in a tiny little room with somebody who's been incarcerated. I've also made lots of friendships that way with lots of people, fellow brothers and sisters who should not have been incarcerated. Also spent countless hours in my office talking to people who claimed, I don't know if they're telling me the truth or not, that they've been mistreated by the police. They told me stories of what happened. You know how fast you were driving on my road? The officer said to me, they said. I don't know. Did the officer really say that? I've heard lots of horror stories, some of them hard to believe. But it was still hard to have a really full understanding of what goes on in our justice system. That all changed for me on December 21st, 2013. All of that changed for me. Only now can I start talking about what happened to me on that day. It's been over 4 years, and this is my very first time speaking of this incident publicly. But it's a story that needs to be told. So as hard as it is for me to tell this story, I stand before you on videotape as well, because I want the entire world to know about what happened. The story starts a week earlier, on December 14th, 2013. My ex and myself and my 5 kids took a pleasure cruise out of the port of Miami. We had an awesome time. If you've been on one of these cruises, you know how it is. Absolute elegance, opulence, food everywhere, the best food, great time, entertainment, ports of call. I was there with my kids. We stopped in Jamaica. I saw my great buddy Richard Barton in Jamaica, my brother in Freedom. Terrific trip. On the ship, I noticed that they were selling things in a duty-free store. You know, come shop at the duty-free store. No taxes, everything duty-free, great deals. I bought my very first watch on that cruise. This watch I have right here today. I went into the store and I bought this really beautiful Tag Heuer watch. Bought a second watch as well. I had finally arrived as an attorney. First time in my life, I had a watch. Just wasn't much of a watch wearer. Used my phone. A week later, 12/21, cruise had ended, and we were exiting the ship and preparing to clear customs with our 5 kids. My ex always handled the declaration form. You know, this government form you got to fill out. I don't like filling out government forms. It's like Maj was talking about, that form 4473. I don't like filling out that form. I never recommend anybody fill out that form. You don't have to fill out that form. If you buy a second-hand gun in the secondary market, why would you want to fill out a government form? So I don't want to fill them out, so I gave it to my ex to fill out the form. But this was sort of uneventful. We took our luggage, we took our kids, we went through customs, handed the passports, whatever government permission slips we needed, we showed. Handed in the customs form, very uneventful way, exited the terminal onto the sidewalk, and began to do what travelers do. I had contracted ahead of time for a shuttle to take myself, my ex, my 5 kids, some of our friends, some of their kids to the airport, and we started searching for that shuttle. As we were standing there looking for the shuttle, all of a sudden I was approached by a very upset, agitated, angry Customs and Border Patrol agent. Came right up to me like she was upset with me. She said, "You need to come with me right now." I said, "What do you mean? For what? What's going on?" "Just come with me." I said, "Okay, well, where are we going?" "Come with me." I said, "Well, look, I got 5 kids here. I got my luggage on the curb here in Miami. I got a shuttle coming. I need somebody to watch my kids. How long am I going to be gone?" "Come with me. Come with me." So in fairness, there might have been, I don't know, a 5-second delay from when she said, "Come with me," till I started coming with me. Or coming with her, I should say. But that 5-second delay, man, that infuriated that Customs and Border Patrol agent. Because you know, when somebody with a badge says jump, you're expected to say how high, as you're in the air already. And that I didn't do that I had some questions, I think annoyed this Customs and Border Patrol agent. But nonetheless, I decided to comply. So I walked with my ex through the port terminal to secondary. I was taken to a secondary checkpoint for Customs and Border Patrol. And when I arrived there, I stood on the side of a table, and on the other side of the table stood a very professional Customs and Border Patrol agent who was absolutely fantastic. He asked me a simple question as he presented the customs form to me. He said, "Hey, did you purchase a couple of watches on board that ship that you failed to declare on this form?" I said, "Well, I don't know. Let me see the form." He said, "Take a look at the form." So he handed me the form, and I looked at it, and I saw for the very first time this form, and there sure was not 2 watches declared. But I looked down at the bottom, and I saw what the rules were, and the rules said, you are to declare things that you bought over a certain value abroad. And I thought, well, did I buy this abroad? I mean, I always thought abroad meant in a foreign country. I don't know if abroad applies to in international waters. So I said, I don't know if I failed to declare something or not. So the very professional Customs and Border Patrol agent said to me, he proposed a resolution. He said, how about this, Mr. Victor? I'll give you a blank form. Take your form. Go sit over here. About 2 feet away, there were some chairs. So why don't you sit down, take your time, call whoever you got to call, research whatever you got to research. If you'd like to fill out the form again and turn it in, no problem. I said, that sounds like a reasonable resolution. I said, fantastic. I will take your offer. And I picked up the filled out form that he had handed me back, and I took the blank form from him, and then I turned to go sit down in the chair and fill out the form. Well, what I hadn't told you is during this conversation, we were visited by a, what I would call 300-pound Neanderthal customs agent. You know, in my mind, the issue had already been resolved. No voices were raised. We were in complete agreement on how to resolve the issue. But nobody had communicated this to the Neanderthal who had approached the situation kind of like this. And he was standing here, 300 pounds of blubber, plus a bunch of other cellular matter in his head where brain cells would go. And he was leaning over in a very imposing kind of way, like, what's the problem here? As we were having this, finishing off our conversation. He was hovering over me in very intimidating way. I don't think he was aware of my resolution with the very professional Customs and Border Patrol agent, and I suspect he didn't much like the fact that I picked up the offending form, the evidence in the case, and started walking away. I think he thought I might have been up to something that I shouldn't have been up to, and he seemed a little upset by that. But I looked at that and I saw I was a tad bit disturbed. But as I turned to walk away, I figured the other Border Patrol agent will sort of explain to him, we got it all figured out, everything's fine. So as I turned and started walking over here, I felt what I could only explain as two strong hands. Come here, Marc, let me tell you, let me use you as an example. You're me, Marc is me, and I'm the 300-pound nutcase. He came up behind me and went like this. And I did just what Marc did. Right. I turned around to see who it was. I thought maybe it was my buddy Mike, who was also exiting the cruise ship, just calling to say, ha, man, you got sent to secondary. How funny. But as I turned around, I saw it was this Neanderthal. And as I turned like this, he shook me back. And I looked at him, I said, what are you doing? And he kept shaking me. And I said a second time, what are you doing, man? And just as I said that, he picked me up off the ground, really high up, brought me about over here, and then smashed me head first into the ground. I felt my face smash onto the ground, my elbow smashed, my knee smashed, and I was pinned under 300 pounds of blubber. At this point, I was totally injured. I couldn't tell at this point because I couldn't look at anything, but I was bleeding and I was injured. And I'm laying there on the ground thinking to myself, this guy just made a huge mistake. There's going to be a lawsuit here when this thing is resolved. But then I heard him start yelling. You know what he was yelling? Stop resisting! And I thought, you got to be kidding me, right? I mean, I'm squished on the ground. Stop resisting. I thought, you know what? I know this game. I've heard this before from some of my clients. So I said, I'm not resisting. To which he responded, stop resisting. Once that happened, some of his friends showed up, and I felt nothing but elbows and knees and a lot more weight. And what first was, this is going to be a lawsuit type situation, turned into a dog pile situation, turned into, this is now a life-threatening situation because I couldn't breathe. I felt the air squishing from my lungs as these guys were piling on me, all three of them now screaming as loud as they could, stop resisting, as they're punching me and kneeing me and kicking me as I'm on the floor, squished like a bug. Fortunately, I've been doing bench presses for the last 30 or so years, and I was just strong enough to squeak up my chest, to squeak in a little air, to squeak out, I can't breathe. That was almost the end for me, because I couldn't breathe. Fortunately, one of the thugs on my back yelled out, flatten out your hand. I thought, flatten out my hand? What's he talking about? As I was squished on the ground, and I saw my arm was kind of like this, I'll put it here as if this is the floor, I saw my hand was sort of cupped on the ground. I don't know why this was important to him, but I figured this would be a good time to flatten out my hand. So I flattened out my hand. Once I flattened out my hand, I got a new pair of bracelets put on my wrists, and I was immediately taken away, cuffed, and stuffed into a tiny little cell somewhere at the port of Miami. Not only was I put into this tiny little cell, I was also handcuffed in a way I would only call torturous. I was put on a bench, and then I was cuffed behind my back on an angle like this, where I was forced to sit for hours. Well, the handcuffs, which were not double locked, grew tighter and tighter and tighter. Just as I was being put into the cell, they were rummaging through my wallet, and one of them said, "This guy's a lawyer." I didn't know if that was going to help or hurt at this point. But the handcuffs kept growing tighter and tighter and tighter because they were not double locked. At one point, the Neanderthal entered my cell with an act of kindness, had some water in his hands for me because hours had gone by. I wasn't even able to check what was going on with my knee or my elbow or my face or my head or my watch, which was probably smashed and broken. He came in with some water, and I thought, yeah, it'd be great to have some water. And then he put it in front of my face like this and put it down right there. Well, he left me cuffed like this. So I was able to look at the water for the next hour while it sat there on the bench next to me. He even taunted me about the water, as I was fearing permanent damage to my fingers, which were now numb. I couldn't feel my fingers any longer. So I kept yelling, "Hello? Hello? Can I get some help in here?" And I'm screaming and yelling about the pain that I'm in because I'm handcuffed behind my back way too tight, growing tighter and tighter and tighter. Until one of the Customs and Border Patrol agents came in and said, "Hey, just want to let you know, your kids have been moved into the area, and they're hearing you scream and yell in pain right now. Just letting you know." So that shut me up for a while. Till finally, a Customs and Border Patrol supervisor came in the room. And I thought, finally, somebody here who I can talk to about what happened here. I was very thankful and happy to see the Customs and Border Patrol supervisor enter the room. I quickly detected her contempt for me as she said, "Do you know how serious this is?" I said, "What are you talking about? Do you know what happened here?" She said, "I know exactly what happened here. 5 Customs and Border Patrol agents saw you turn around, assume a boxing stance, and start throwing punches against the Neanderthal. 5 Customs and Border Patrol agents were eyewitnesses to your assault on a federal officer, and that's exactly what you're going to be charged with." I wasn't worried at all. Well, I mean, why should I be worried? This is the secondary checkpoint of Customs and Border Patrol. All you got to do is pull the video and you'll see exactly what happened. So I didn't have any concern at this point. And in fact, I knew exactly what had happened, and I knew exactly what didn't happen. And I knew damn well that I absolutely, if anybody who knows me, I sort of subscribe to this thing called the non-aggression principle. I'm not likely to turn around and assume a boxing stance and start throwing punches. But just for the fun of it, I did a polygraph examination. On December 21st, 2013, did you intentionally hit or strike any law enforcement officer while at the Port of Miami cruise terminal? No. Same date, did you initiate any physical force against any law enforcement officer while at the Port of Miami cruise terminal? No. Same date, did you ever become physically combative with any law enforcement officer while at the Port of Miami cruise terminal? No. Test results, no deception indicated. Polygraph passed, duh. Exhibit number 2. Same questions presented to my ex. Did you see Mark intentionally hit or strike? No, 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 no. Test results, no deception indicated. I knew what the truth was. I wasn't all that worried. Until finally, Homeland Security, an investigator, came in to get to the bottom of what happened here. I had wrongfully assumed that this guy had reviewed the situation, maybe saw the video, maybe knew what happened. I thought maybe he was there to investigate Customs and Border Patrol's activities that day. First thing out of my mouth to this guy, hey man, please make sure the video is preserved. Please, that's all I care about at this point. And he turned to me and said, ain't no video. I said, no. Dude, this is the secondary checkpoint of an international border. This is the secondary checkpoint. There ain't no way there's no video of this incident. He said, no, man, I'll check again, but I don't think there's any video at all of this incident. And I'm here to let you know, up until just recently, I have, as aggressively as one can, been pursuing the disclosure of that video through Freedom of Information Act requests, appeals, administrative proceedings, and on and on and on. Answers I get back are 2. Number 1, there ain't no video. And number 2, even if there was a video, this is absolutely critical national security stuff, and we couldn't possibly release this video. This would endanger national security if this video of Customs, and this is the same reason you can't take your cell phone. You can't use it because it's very secret there, and we could never release any video, even if there was one, which there definitely isn't. I was informed by that Homeland Security agent that I would be booked into jail that day. Didn't matter that I had a flight planned back. Didn't matter anything else about what was going on in my life. Didn't matter that my kids were there and I needed to get them back from Miami. He said, no, you're going to be charged with a felony assault of a federal officer, and I'm here to book you into jail. Like I said, didn't care about how this was going to affect my life. So I went from there to an experience I hadn't had yet. The experience of being presumed innocent in our justice system. And now I will tell you what it's like to be presumed innocent in our justice system. I was taken to a federal holding facility around Saturday around noon time, because that's how long. We came in probably around, 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. It was about noon by the time they got me to the federal holding facility. I was then strip searched twice. They had to check to see if I was smuggling anything up my rectum twice into the federal holding facility. Spread out, Mr. Victor, spread those cheeks. We got to look and make sure you're not smuggling anything. They changed me into jail garb. I was handcuffed almost the entire time. I was paraded through the federal facility where they walked me to what I would describe as a tiny, filthy jail cell where they opened the door. And I remember just as they were ready to stuff me into that cell, I said, how long do I have to stay in here? I never forget what the guy said. Till Monday when you see the judge. Threw me in, slammed the door behind me. I was definitely presumed guilty. There was one kind person along the way who I met in my travels at the federal holding facility. One person who showed me any compassion at all. It was another inmate. Really cool guy. Wish I could thank him today. One guy, an inmate, who was a fellow traveler through the same hellhole that I was going through. He said, hey man, you seem like you're new here. I said, yeah, man, I just got booked in today. Have you eaten? I said, no. He said, I can get you a bag. You want a bag? I said, yeah. He brought us over and he threw it through my bar cell, and I got a bag. Told me a few other things about kind of life there. I got a little compassion from somebody, and I got to say, it felt good to be interacting with a human being after interacting with nothing but Neanderthals. I was in solitary confinement. I didn't get any phone call. I didn't get any medical attention. There was nobody there who cared about what was going on with me in my medical situation, or what meds I might have been taking or needed, or what surgeries or medical conditions I might have had, or what injuries I may have suffered in my dog pile crushing with the Neanderthals. I was given horrendous food. Forget about the fact that I'm mostly vegan. They didn't care. It was just like the movies. There's a little slit in the door. They opened that, shoved in a tray. Tray usually had the same thing on it. Disgusting looking apple, some white bread with bologna or salami or something in it, maybe a piece of cheese, strawberry cake, sometimes Kool-Aid, got that sometimes, and usually milk, none of which I eat, of course. Horrendous food. I had a shower, but it had no curtain, so whenever you turned on the water, it ran right out into the floor of the disgusting little cell I was in. I had water, too, from the filthy toilet water combination fountain thing that was sitting in my cell. No cup or anything. No privacy. Forget privacy. Like the toilet was right there in front of the window. So if I had to go to the bathroom or take a shower, somebody could look right in at me, but I was just a chattel. It didn't matter at this point. I had absolutely no privacy. I marked out how big my cell was because I had nothing to do. But what I can tell you is I could take 6 steps this way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I could take 6 steps that way, and I could take 3 steps this way. 1, 2, 3. Because the shower was taking up space. If I took my other 6 steps, probably about the 3 or 4, I got a few extra steps over here. That was my luxurious place where I was living. I had a sheet, no blanket. I slept on a metal rack with a paper-thin pad. I don't know if they did this on purpose or not, but it was so cold in that room that I think my teeth were chattering all night. There was one time I caught the guy who was coming through, shining his flashlight really bright through my window every hour on the hour directly into my eyes just to make sure I couldn't get any sleep. I caught him one time. I said, hey man, can I get another sheet? I'm freezing in here. He said, no, if we did that for you, we have to do it for everybody. So we can't do that. I had mostly nothing to read, nothing to do, and the pleasure of listening to other human beings scream and yell at the top of their lungs all night long. I was in 24-hour lockdown, not 23-hour lockdown, 24-hour lockdown. That was my life. And I was presumed innocent. As I walked through my cell thinking about my predicament, wondering about whether my life that I've worked so hard for since I was 12 or 13 was now over. 5 Customs and Border Patrol agents said, and will swear under oath, that I turned around, assumed a boxing stance, and started punching a federal officer in the face. And there's no video. That seemed like a pretty bad predicament. The only thing I could think about in my head at that time, and I'll clean it up just a tad, was screw them! They will not break me. I've been through tougher than this. I thought about Marine Corps boot camp at Parris Island. This wasn't shit compared to that. This was nothing. I would get through this. Damn it, I'm a lawyer. I got my own law firm. I will fight them. I will not cave. I will never be broken, ever, by them. Then I had an awesome experience. One of the better experiences of my life that really changed me. On Sunday morning, there was a knock on my door. Somebody came in and said a beautiful thing to me that hit me right square in the heart. You know what it was? Your lawyer is here to visit you. Your lawyer is here to visit you. I thought, there's somebody out there in the world who's on my side, who's on the outside, who's getting me out of this cell right now, that I can come, who's going to ask me how I'm doing. That's how that feels? Wow. I don't remember a thing the guy said to me. I just remember there was someone on the outside who knew something about what was going on in this system, who listened to my story, heard what I had to say, and was on the outside working, trying to get me out of this hellhole. And I knew for the first time in my life what I do, the effect of what I do. I saw it from the other side, and it's changed me forever. I'll never forget, ever, what it was like to be visited by a criminal defense lawyer when you are down in the bowels of the beast, being presumed innocent, as I was. December 23rd came. Monday morning finally came. And I was awakened crazy early. 2 a.m. is my best recollection. Door open. Time to get up. Lights come on. Let's go. We're leaving. I was paraded into court like a death row inmate. I was chained around the midsection with hands in the front. My legs were chained, and I had to walk like this as they paraded me in to federal district court as a client. For the first time in my life, I stood there next to my lawyer. Hands and feet shackled, midsection shackled, and totally 100% humiliated. In front of my ex, who was still there, and in front of my wonderful sister, who heard about this on Saturday in California, and hopped a plane, put her busy life on hold, left her 2 kids, and hopped a plane and was sitting there in federal court to support me while I was brought out the way I was brought out. And it was hard for me to see the torture that I was putting them through. I will say this, to be fair, because I think it's important that we always call balls and strikes on everything that we say. And I just feel I wouldn't be doing this story justice if I didn't tell you about something else. The United States Marshals that I dealt with were wonderful. Those guys were professional in every aspect. And I have to say, I indeed felt I actually was presumed innocent by the way I was treated by the U.S. Marshals. I told one of them yesterday, as they were treating my client with dignity, because I was in federal court yesterday, and I had occasion to tell a marshal yesterday about my talk today, and I told him what I was going to say. He was very happy about that. So I went into court. My lawyer met with the prosecutor. First thing he did is he came over to me, and you know what he told me? He said, "Hey, Mark, I spoke with the prosecutor. The prosecutor thinks this is a very serious case. They're going ahead full steam ahead. He's upset with what you did. He's even more upset because you're an officer of the court, that you would have treated a federal agent like this. They're going for broke." So I stood in federal court for the first time in chains. All my hearings on that Monday, busy Monday, had been rescheduled. All my clients told, Mark didn't catch his plane back from Miami. But I had a busy Tuesday and a busy Wednesday, and I had a firm to run, and checks to sign, and bills to pay, and kids to take care of, and a life to get back to attend to. And I had no guarantee that this judge was either going to let me out of jail, or even if I was let out of jail, I was going to get the somewhat rare, we're going to give you permission to go back to Arizona while your case in Florida is pending. I needed both of those things, and I needed them really bad, or my life was going to be taking a different course. With my law firm hanging in the balance, my life hanging in the balance, I stood there while my lawyer said, Mr. Victor, he's a lawyer on the prestigious CJA panel, the Criminal Justice Act panel in Arizona. He's been a lawyer on that panel for 20 years. He has no priors. He's good ties to the country. He'll be back. The judge said, okay, I'm going to release him from jail today, and I'm going to give him permission to go back to Arizona. I thought, my life, at least for the moment, continues unchanged. I was released hours later, but I had a felony case pending. Let's see exhibit number 3. Exhibit number 3, the United States of America versus Marc Victor. The charge, 18 United States Code, Section 111, assaulting, resisting, or impeding certain officers or employees of the United States. Happened on December 21st, 2013, signed by the judge. That's what I had to face. A federal prosecution for assault on a federal officer. My attitude was, I'm not pleading guilty to anything. I did nothing wrong. Yeah, I'm concerned about those 5 agents lying. Yeah, I'm concerned about the transaction cost of fighting this thing. I got to hire a lawyer myself. They don't come cheap. It's in Miami. I have to fly to Miami and deal with this thing. There's going to be lots of hearings. And I still got 5 lying police officers to deal with. I got the affidavit written by this guy. That's the judge. Engelmeyer, right here, the special agent. He wrote the affidavit and summarized the case, which said, Marc Victor initially, and I'm quoting, refused to go to secondary when I was at the curb. I just refused to do it. And then I, quote, became confrontational while walking through the terminal, end quote. And I said, while I was walking through the terminal, quote, what type of fucking police officer are you? End quote. And there was no video ever produced of what happened at secondary. And the case went on and on and on at that stalemate. I wasn't pleading, and they weren't budging until something happened to change the case. What happened was a video surfaced, not of the incident, but of me walking through the terminal. This is what happens with lies, right? You might not cover up everything. You might just get some of it and leave a piece. And there was a piece, because there was a video of me walking through the terminal. And fortunately, my lawyer told me, when he spoke to the United States attorney who was prosecuting the case, how blown away the United States attorney was when he viewed that video after reviewing this affidavit about how horrible I acted. What he actually saw was me very calmly walking through the terminal like a gentleman. He said he didn't even see my lips move. He didn't see me say one word to anybody about anything. And apparently, that got his attention, that something was wrong. Something wasn't right. When you read an affidavit like that, and then you have a video of somebody walking through the terminal, complete contradiction to what was represented, he knew something wasn't right. He offered me the rarest of deals in federal court. I sent a package of information to the United States attorney. Polygraphs, my entire honorable service in the United States Marine Corps, commendations that I had received, my overseas wartime service in Saudi Arabia, my honorable discharge, and 50 character letters. 50 from really impressive people out in our community, some of whom are speaking at this Freedom Summit. All of whom said, Marc ain't the kind of guy to do this type of thing. This is a guy who's given countless speeches about even if it's a wrongful arrest, you have no right to resist. That prosecutor offered me the rarest of deals, a diversion deal. They offer possibly one deal a year in this district. They agreed to dismiss the case with prejudice. If I would agree to one thing, I'm not agreeing to shit, right? You want me to agree to what? I got to agree to something if I want the dismissal with prejudice. And I can tell you I did not want to agree. Here was the deal. Marc, we will drop the felony case against you. We will just drop it with prejudice if you agree to never sue us. I initially refused this deal. I said, hell no. I want to sue Fatty. I want him going through the courts. I want him going through with his wife in there too, if he has such a person. Dr. Rick Fisher over here had checked me out. Wouldn't take a dime from me. Not a dime. Gave me a full physical. Documented everything that happened to me. I wanted to sue them. They needed to be sued. This is a deal I've been trying to get my entire career. You know how many times I've gone to a prosecutor and said, hey man, my guy's going to sue your cop. How about this? You guys drop the case. I'll get my guy not to sue. Let's just resolve it like that. And every single time I've been told the same thing. Marc, I think quite correctly, by the way, Marc, this is an unethical deal. We would never drop a criminal case based on somebody's promise not to sue. That's unethical. We would never do it. Yet here it was offered to me. Based on nothing but pragmatic considerations, I did exactly what my clients do. They're faced with the same choice all the time. I did what they did. I accepted the deal to dismiss the case in exchange for my promise not to sue them. Let's see exhibit number 4. I would not tell this story because you wouldn't believe it without exhibit number 4, which they so thankfully put into writing. United States of America versus Marc J. Victor, agreement for pretrial diversion. Number 3, I'm going to read. Having met all of the conditions required to be eligible for pretrial diversion, voluntarily and after consulting with counsel, very important language, defendant and his guardians, heirs, executors, administrators, or assigns hereby agrees to waive any and all claims, demands, rights, causes of action whatsoever kind in nature, including claims for wrongful death arising from and by reason of any and all known and unknown, foreseen and unforeseen, bodily and personal injuries, next page, damage to property and the consequences thereof, which they may have or hereinafter acquire against the United States, its agents, servants, and employees on account of defendant's arrest by U.S. Customs and Border Protection officers on December 21st, 2013. Can you believe they put that in writing? I couldn't believe it. I wouldn't tell you this story because I don't think you would believe this story unless I had that agreement right there signed by the prosecutor, my lawyer, me, and the probation officer. That was the agreement. Just say you won't sue us, Marc, and we'll make it all go away. Let's see exhibit number 5, please. So there's my dismissal without prejudice. Wait a second. I thought the deal was with prejudice. How did this show up? Did you think I was going to miss this? Let's see exhibit number 6. Days later, it's hereby ordered amending the order to state that the dismissal is, quote, with prejudice. Take what you want from that.
What's the difference between with and without prejudice?
Without prejudice means it can be brought back. With prejudice means it can't be brought back. So after this was over, years later, maybe about a year ago, I sent a letter to that very assistant United States attorney, basically saying, look, man, the case has been over now for years. There are some things I think you should know about what happened in this case, about things going on in your district. Please call me, because I'd like to tell you these things. Crickets. What was learned? Let me tell you what was learned. This can happen to anybody. Police brutality is not a black problem. It's not a Latino problem. It's not a low-end socioeconomic end of the scale problem. It's a human problem. Police brutality is a human problem. That's what we need to get in our heads. This is not an indictment of everybody who wears a badge. Again, calling balls and strikes, my opinion, this is Marc Victor talking after 24 years of the system. The vast majority of law enforcement officers that I run up against are honest and act in good faith. There are bad apples in every group, every walk of life, every demographic. Maybe there's more at Customs and Border Patrol, I don't know. But I have a much better understanding of lots of things now. I know what it's like to be a victim of police brutality. I get it, and I'm glad I get it. I know what it's like to be falsely accused of a major crime. I get it. I know what it's like to be incarcerated, not knowing if your life is over. I get it. I really, truly understand that. I know what it's like to be a client. I know what it's like to be a client in our justice system. And I know what presumed innocent means. I said it yesterday in court, in federal court, as a matter of fact. I stood up and I said, Judge, maybe I'm old-fashioned. Maybe I'm the only one here who still believes this, but to me the presumption of innocence is important. I mean, we ought to stop saying it if we don't mean it, right? But I'm left wondering some things. What if I couldn't afford a private lawyer? What if I couldn't? What if I didn't have 50 close friends who could write me glowing character letters? What if I didn't have an exemplary United States Marine Corps career to rely on? What if I couldn't afford those polygraphs you saw up there? What if I wasn't a criminal defense attorney? Someone who could actually go down there and fight the case. Someone who knows how to fight the case. What if there wasn't a video of me peacefully walking through the terminal? What would have happened then? What if I wasn't offered the diversion program that I was offered? Would I have pled guilty to something? Or would I have faced 5 lying police officers who said I assumed a boxing stance and started throwing punches? Would I have been convicted? It makes me wonder how many people are convicted felons now or serving time right now because of lying police officers. I can say, most importantly, I'm definitely a better criminal defense lawyer as a result of this incident. It only makes me stronger. It only makes me more resolved to fight the state for people. It's why I do civil rights cases. It's why I went back to my law firm and I said, you know what? We do civil rights now. We sue the government. Not in all cases, in legitimate cases. I have a better understanding of what criminal defendants experience now. And there is just simply no other way. There is no other way to get the experience that I got. It's a good thing. This whole incident was a great experience for me. It makes me who I am today. I have a special appreciation. Every time I'm driving down to the jail, I know I'm going to be that guy for somebody. Bottom line, I survived my confrontation with the government, and I'm happy about that. But I could have been killed, or more accurately stated, murdered. I could have been murdered in my interaction with the government. Not all allegations of police brutality are legitimate. Some of them are, even if they seem unbelievable or shocking. But let's resolve to call balls and strikes. We don't need to exaggerate things. Let's call it like it actually is. There's good cops and there's bad cops, and we need the good cops. The bad ones, let's just find them and get rid of them. Final thought. And then I'm going to I don't know if we have time for questions or not. Here's my final thought. If we keep pursuing policies that require violence, coercion, and threats, or said another way, if we keep pursuing policies that violate the non-aggression principle, we shouldn't be surprised when we see so much violence in our society. And if we do truly value peace, we need to pursue policies that pursue peace, that value peace. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much.